So Salt Eaters is a dance, essentially, a new dance using hologram technology to bring a lost folk dance from Rajasthan from the 19th century, 1846, that had been performed by a Muslim dancer called Umda in a Mughal palace at that period. Her story can be found in records at the British Library, and we're using the small modicum amount of information we have to use that as a jumping off point to try and investigate and create a new experience for small audiences based on the findings of this research. And it's early days and we have lots of questions.
I don't know if I understand the question. Actually, because, as I said, my belief from my non-religious point of view that I had in my life is that your culture is where it has some fragments of the religion.
In your own time.
Hi, I'm Pakiza. I work in community engagement for an arts and culture charity called Amal. We exist to shift the narrative around Muslims in the UK to one which is confident, diverse and just. I sort of fell into working in the arts sector by accident, to be honest, and I think one of my first entry points into culture and really getting passionate about the potential of that was studying literature at university. And if I was going to be really crazy and try and pick a favourite book, I might say The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje. My connections to the Muslim world, that feels like a really big question, but also I think a simple answer for me, the first place my mind goes to is my family. I was born into a Muslim family, and I think so much of the identity that I've assumed around being Muslim comes from and started with that. And then I think there's that widens out a little bit when I think about being part of a wider South Asian community. So my family is Pakistani, and I think there's a Muslim identity that's associated with that. And then I think it gets even wider when you think about other things that I'm interested in, like literature and history and all of the ways that I can explore and work out what Muslimness means to me and feels like to me through exploring other things that I'm interested in.
If I said Muslim female dancer, what springs to mind?
I can't say that there's one image that comes to my mind when you ask me that question, and I think that's because there shouldn't be. For me, the idea of somebody being Muslim, female, and a dancer doesn't feel like it's radical or exceptional. I think it feels like a norm. I think it is something that is and has always been, and there's a multitude of different ways that somebody who fulfills those labels might play that out. So I think that's something that's really important, actually, that my response is there's all sorts of different ways that could look. I think that's really important to say.
Hi, I'm Karina Croucher. I teach and research archaeology here at the University of Bradford. Really interested not just in the past but in why that matters to people today, making a difference in people's lives. And I've been living in Bradford for about 7 or 8 years now. Love living in such a vibrant city. my connection to the Muslim world, I guess there are different strands of it. My stepdad or adopted dad was Muslim by origin, and he wasn't practicing, but his extended family were Muslim, so when we'd visit them we were kind of immersed in that culture. That's in Bangladesh. Also my dad in England converted to Islam when I was a teenager, which was quite interesting. He started out being atheist. So I had quite an interesting religious upbringing. When I was small, my mum was Catholic and my dad was atheist. And then later my dad converted to Islam, and my mum kind of lost religion when we got divorced, and the church kind of disowned her. So it was an interesting journey on religion. So I've got some family connections, but I think also living in Bradford, I've got lots of friends who are Muslim. My son takes part in Eid Day at school, which he absolutely loves. During Ramadan we'll go along to iftar at the open iftar tent in town, and I just think it's just a really interesting culture. I've spent time on field work in both Turkey and Jordan, so obviously with Muslim communities there, and I've just always been overwhelmed by everyone's hospitality and kindness. I probably have to clutch at straws a little bit. Nothing prominently comes to mind. There's not anyone that in my immediate circles is prominent in the media. I know Mez, and she's talked to me a lot about dancing, but also on a project I ran, we had an ambassador who is from a Muslim background and was an amazing contemporary dancer, and I know she had challenges and struggles in her dancing with dance being accepted. So I think it's possibly a challenging topic. Also, actually, when we were in fieldwork in Jordan, we had a cultural heritage festival where lots of the community were singing, dancing, sharing stories, sharing food, but we're also using virtual reality sites of heritage to prompt stories and discussion and cohesion and well-being. And it emerged then that in public, men and children were dancing, but the women weren't able to because they were being watched and they wanted a private space. So in the Cultural Heritage Festival, we created a private space where they could dance. Now many of those, they'd been living in the refugee camps for 5 years or so, and that was the first time they'd had to get together to dance as women in that time. And I was really privileged because I was also a woman. I was invited in, and it was just so overwhelming to witness that kind of release and the affection and the passion, and just, you could see how it was sparking lots of memories for some, but for the younger girls being able to dance with their mums, that intergenerational connection, and their grandparents was really important. I feel really privileged to have got to be a part of that. So yeah, I could certainly see from their experience the amount of joy it brought, but how it wasn't able to be a part of their everyday life, which seemed a real challenge, and it was a real shame when the men and children could have that as part of their lives.
My name is Dani Shirvani, and I live in Gothenburg, Sweden. And English is my third language, so I speak Kurdish, Swedish, then English. And my occupation is I have a mobile shop where I repair stuff.
My name is Vendela Sörensson, and I live on an island outside Gothenburg in Sweden. And I work at a cafe here on the island. And for a hobby, I'm shooting air pistol, traveling and competing in the world. It's air pistol, so you're standing. You're shooting on a target. You're standing 10 meters from the target, and you shoot 60 shots, and that's what I do. So in Sweden, I'm the best in Sweden, but here in Sweden we don't have so much like we don't have so many shooters. So when I'm out traveling and shooting, it's I'm not one of the best shooters, but I'm getting there. I've been shooting European Championships, World Championships, World Cups, Grand Prix, and
You're an Olympian, right?
no, not yet. Hopefully, just have to get a quota place first.
I'm born in Iraq, Baghdad, but I'm from Kurdish heritage.
I like traveling and just explore. So
If I said to you both, Muslim and female dancer, what would come to mind?
You can start.
I don't know.
For me, it doesn't sound that good, but if you're gonna go through the Muslim perspective that she's a dancer, and through the religion you have to cover your body and stuff like that, you don't have to bring some make the men think about in a sexual way. But at the same time, I grew up in Sweden. My perspective has changed through the years. So if I lived, maybe I've lived today. If I was still in Iraq, maybe it would be weird for me, because that's the upgrowing and stuff like that. Because we don't see the other side of the coin, if we gonna put it that way. So when I grew up in Sweden, I see the other culture. So the both cultures blend together for me, because I'm still have my culture at home, and I have to live by the Swedish norm and their cultures when I get to work, or let's say when I grew up, I went to school and stuff like that. So my perspective changed. So for example, if we're gonna talk about this stuff with my parents, we have both different views about the same subject, but we came from the same household. So that's an interesting question how you see it. But it depends who you ask and where they have been brought up, to be honest. What do you think?
No, I have not so much to say actually.
So even just like if you heard of, say at the theatre, there was something, it says, on the poster it said Muslim dancer, would you think that's common, or do you think that's unusual, or would you think those two things go together?
I don't think I would think anything special actually. Muslim, no. Sorry.
But for me, it got a different sound to it, because, as I said, I have a different upbringing than her. So it's like this Muslim Tinder version. There is a Muslim Tinder version. There Muslim people they join the Tinder and they hook up with people just like Tinder, but for Muslims. So it have a different. It sounds so weird because of what we have been taught since we were small, that's not how the Muslim culture or stuff like that works. But to be honest, if we're gonna take up the subject like Muslim Tinder, it's like real marriage for us, if you could put it in perspective, because our parents hook us up with somebody we don't know. So if you put stuff in perspective, it's not that weird. But sometimes when people don't think that much, they pass too much judgment. For example, in a Muslim society, or you go after the Quran, you should never pass judgment on another person, because at the end of the day, Allah will judge you. But instead we put judgment on everybody else. We judge everybody else by how they dress, how they what they eat, what they do, but that's wrong. So some people are kind of hypocrites, but it's not up to me, to be honest. But